Have you ever felt ashamed of your anger, afraid of what might happen if you really let yourself feel it? You're not the only one. As a therapist, I've seen firsthand how society's judgment around anger keeps so many of us silent. But what if I told you that your anger is not the enemy? It's actually trying to protect you. Stay with me as we explore the hidden truth about anger, trauma, and the path to healing. Today we're diving deep into a topic that's often misunderstood and masked in shame: anger and rage. After years of working with foster kids, juvenile offenders, and trauma survivors, let's start by challenging something we've all heard: that anger is bad, destructive, or something we need to suppress. This couldn't be further from the truth. Anger is actually a natural response to unmet needs and violations of boundaries. It's like our emotional smoke alarm. Anger shows up to alert us. But here's what happens. Society tells us to push that anger down, to be good and calm. We learn early on that being angry isn't acceptable, so we suppress it, hide it, and eventually lose touch with what it's trying to tell us. You know, I often see this in my clinical practice. People come in apologizing for their anger. I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't be this angry. When we actually listen to our stories about our anger, everything makes perfect sense. It's often been our loyal protector, showing up when nobody else would. Think about it when a child feels unsafe. Anger might be what helps them stand up for themselves. When someone's boundaries are repeatedly violated, anger becomes their voice. These aren't flaws in the system. They're the system working exactly the way it should. Here's something crucial that often gets overlooked. Trauma isn't just about the big, obvious events. It's about how experiences, especially in childhood, imprint themselves on our nervous system. I've seen this repeatedly in my work, whether it's with foster kids, individuals in the juvenile justice system, or people struggling with homelessness. Their anger often stems from layers of unprocessed trauma. Think of your nervous system like a security system. When you've experienced trauma, that system gets rewired to be on high alert. Rage becomes your bodyguard, always ready to defend you against potential threats. It's not a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism. Let me share an analogy I often use with my younger clients. Imagine your emotions are like air in a balloon. Every time you suppress your anger, you add more air. That balloon can only handle so much pressure before it explodes. This is what happens when we try to contain our anger without understanding it. Many people come to therapy terrified of their anger. They say things like, if I start feeling it, I won't be able to stop. They're afraid of opening what I call the emotional floodgates. But here's the truth. Those floodgates needs to be opened gradually, safely, and with support. I remember working with a teenager who perfectly illustrated this balloon concept. She'd been told her whole life to just calm down and to stop being angry. One day, she exploded at school. A seemingly minor incident triggered years of suppressed emotions. In our sessions, she drew her own version of the balloon, filling it with all the times she'd been told to be good instead of honest about her feelings. It was a powerful reminder that we're not just dealing with today's anger, but often years of stored emotional pressure. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you: intrusive thoughts, including the violent ones. They are more common than you might think. Even kids experience them. This is one of the most shameful aspects of anger that keeps people silent. In my clinical practice, I approach homicidal thoughts the same way I approach suicidal thoughts, with compassion and understanding. These thoughts don't make you a bad person. They're often signals of deep inner conflict and unprocessed trauma. The real danger lies in not having spaces to talk about them. Let me share something powerful that happened in a group therapy session. We were discussing intrusive thoughts, and there was this heavy silence in the room. Then one brave participant spoke up about their violent thoughts, their voice shaking. What happened next was remarkable. Almost everyone in the room nodded in recognition. It was like watching relief wash over their faces as they realized they weren't alone. They weren't broken. This is why I'm so passionate about creating spaces for these type of conversations. When we bring these thoughts out of the shadows, they often lose some of their power over us. Here's where things get complicated. Shame and anger often dance together in a vicious cycle. You feel angry, then you feel ashamed of your anger, which leads to suppression, which creates more anger, and the cycle continues. What makes this worse is that most of us were never taught how to regulate these intense emotions. And let's be honest, you can't always count on your family or friends to understand. Sometimes even well-meaning loved ones can make things worse with judgment or dismissive comments. Social media, that's often the last place you want to be vulnerable about these feelings. I recently worked with a patient who described the shame spiral like a whirlpool. It starts with getting angry at my kids, they said, then I hate myself for being angry, then I get angry at myself for hating myself, and then I feel even more shame for all of it. This is such a common experience, but we rarely talk about it openly. The truth is, many of us are carrying not just our own shame around anger, but generational patterns of how anger was handled or mishandled in our families. Breaking these patterns require understanding, not just willpower. Think of emotions as messengers from your internal world. When anger shows up, it's trying to tell you something important, just like every other emotion. Maybe it's saying, hey, your boundaries are being crossed, or there's an old wound here that needs attention. In my years of therapy work, I've noticed that anger often wears many masks. Sometimes it disguises itself as anxiety, sometimes as depression, but underneath there's usually a story waiting to be told and understood. Think of your anger like a wise but wounded warrior. This warrior has been fighting battles for you your whole life, but maybe it's time to let it rest, to listen to its story, to understand what's been protecting you from all these years. Sometimes this warrior shows up in unexpected ways. I've worked with people who thought they never got angry, only to discover their chronic people-pleasing or perfectionism was actually anger in disguise turned inward instead of outward. Here's what I want you to know about healing. It's not about getting rid of anger. It's about understanding it, befriending it, and learning what it's trying to tell you. The process involves something I deeply believe in, the power of narrative therapy. Your story needs to be told and retold until the trauma loses its grip. Through my work with various populations, I've seen how creating safe spaces for these conversations can be transformative. It's about slowly removing the masks we built from years of trauma and reconnecting with our authentic selves. I remember working with a group of foster kids who started keeping what we call anger journals. But instead of just logging their angry moments, they wrote letters to their anger, asking it questions like, what are you trying to tell me? And what do you need? The insights they gained were profound, often discovering that anger was carrying messages about love, belonging, and safety. This is why I emphasize the importance of being curious about your anger rather than just trying to figure out ways to manage it. It's like being an archaeologist of your own emotional world, because each layer of your anger might be protecting something valuable underneath. Here's the beautiful paradox. Once you start understanding and accepting your anger, it can become one of your greatest tools for growth. That same fire that once felt destructive can add positive changes in your life. It can help you set better boundaries, pursue your passions, and stand up for what you believe in. I've witnessed this transformation countless times in my practice. There was a client who channeled their rage and anger about childhood abuse into becoming an advocate for other survivors. Another used their anger about injustice to add fire to their work in community organizing. When we stop fighting our anger and start listening to it, it can become an incredible compass for what matters most to us. Think of it this way. Anger is often just passion that hasn't found its proper channel yet. The same energy that can destroy when suppressed can create when understood and redirected. So remember, healing from trauma and understanding your anger is a journey and a process, not a destination. It requires patience, self-compassion, and often support from others who understand this path. Whether you're dealing with occasional anger or deep-seated rage, know that there's nothing wrong with you. Your anger has been protecting you the best way it knows how. As we wrap up, I want to emphasize that it's okay to take this journey slowly and gradually. It's okay to seek help. Most importantly, it's okay to feel what you feel. Your emotions, all of them, deserve to be heard and understood. This is Albert, a mental health licensed therapist, reminding you that understanding your anger is the first step towards transforming it. Until next time, please be gentle with yourself.